What if the most misunderstood part of a product category isn't the product people obsess over, but the one that actually determines performance? Welcome to Industry Ignited, the podcast where we explore bold leaders and breakthrough ideas transforming industries around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Leeanne Aguilar, and today I'm joined by Gary Ramey, CEO of Liberty Ammunition. Gary is a classically trained CPG executive with decades of strategic brand leadership, spanning everything from iconic consumer brands and major retail partnerships to private equity turnarounds and outdoor industry leadership. Gary, welcome to Industry Ignited.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, you've had a rare career arc from consumer packaged goods to the outdoor industry and now ammunition. Looking back, what's the through line that ties your journey together?
It's a great question, and I think it's never give up. I don't view work as, well, I'll do this and then I'm going home. I just never give up. In fact, the tougher the assignment, frankly, the better I like it because it's a challenge. It's fun, and I think you have to get into your product category, really understand the consumer. And throughout my career, everyone has said, yeah, but you don't have experience in this category, or Gary, you don't have this, or this person doesn't have that. If they have the basic precepts of management and marketing, it applies across any product category. You just never give up. Just stay on it, keep going, and you'll do fine.
So it's kind of taking it as a challenge and
Absolutely.
having that base of knowledge and information. And then, how do you take on a new product category? Let's say, do you do research? How do you study it? Is it mentorship, or what has been the driving force behind learning a new product category?
Well, every time I've had to learn a new product category, it's because I've been dragged into it, typically by executives that I worked for in previous companies, where they've gone somewhere and said, hey, I need your help here. And that lasted for the majority of my career. And then I started getting calls from recruiters and others about coming and taking over a position or starting something and leading the charge. At Liberty Ammunition, we were a development house for the government going back 20 years ago, and then ended up in a lawsuit with the government. We lost it. Actually, we won it, and then lost it on appeal, magically, just saying. And then, the category did well for a while, and the company was fine. But then as it started to slip, the owners found me, and they wanted somebody with my type of a background, classic CPG. They wanted someone who understood ammunition and firearms and had some relationships within the industry to come on board and take the reins. So it's been fabulous. And I'd never heard of this little company before I got here. So it's been fun. I haven't had this much fun in the history of forever.
But I know you actually started in more of consumer products from what I we've talked about before, and you were actually even involved in the early launch of Lean Cuisine. And tell me more about that.
Yeah, I did. I was the advertising geek early in my career in the research department at an ad agency called HBM Creamer in Pittsburgh. And a lot of different clients, from Stouffer's to Sara Lee, you name it. And I was the guy in the back when there was research. I sat there in the, doing the tick marks on the big green sheets before. This was pre-computer. There was such a time. And it came to me one day and said, hey, there's this new project. You've expressed interest in account service. If you'd like to try it, there's this thing called Lean Cuisine that Stouffer's wants to launch. And there was also some Sara Lee Chef Pierre business. If you'd like to do those, we'll bring you over to account management. So I did. And I was not only doing that job, I was working on getting my MBA at night and then also teaching a class at Edinburgh University at night. The week I graduated from MBA, Sara Lee offered me a job to be a marketing manager. But during that time, we launched Lean Cuisine and learned a lot about consumer communications. What are consumers looking for? And a great example is we launched, and the tagline was less than 300 calories, because wellness was becoming a big topic. Losing weight, maintaining your health, microwaves. This was actually early in microwave days. So we launched. It was a rousing success, and you and I talked about it earlier, but later on, Stouffer's moved to taste great. It's the taste. And that's not why people buy Lean Cuisine. That's not why people buy Weight Watchers. They buy it so they can feel good about their diet and they're trying to lose weight. And frankly, even when you focus in on the taste of it, it gets pretty salty. As I understand it, sales started to decline and then they rotated back to more of the why are you buying this product? So
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
lesson in
Okay.
consumer branding and
Right.
talking to the consumer in terms they want to understand.
So it's really focusing on the main pain point of the consumer, listening to what they care about, not the taste, which is what, I mean, food, you would think that people are buying the food for the taste, but that wasn't why they were
Not why you
buying.
buy
And
lean cuisine.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
you want taste, you'll go somewhere else. You'll get something fresh, not
yeah,
something frozen. It's a great product, by the way. It's a fabulous product, but it's for the person that wants to lose weight or maintain their weight.
yeah. So that's interesting experience just at the early days of marketing and when marketing wasn't what it is today. It's
It was
just,
easier back then. But,
yeah.
frankly, I worked for, I think, probably the most brilliant marketing mind in history, and that was Dr. Larry Percy. And Larry was a professor at Oxford, Carnegie Mellon, University of Pittsburgh, and he headed up the advertising research piece, and he was just brilliant. He forgot more today than I've learned in a lifetime.
What are the key takeaways that you learned from him?
Focus on the consumer and understand your consumer. It's not always the coolest idea that wins. It's the one that touches the nerve with the consumer. And if you can understand them and do that, then you'll win.
Right. Which, I mean, makes sense, but it's strangely a lot of times companies don't do that. They think more about what, they think is important, what their product and service is or does or what they care about instead of really listening to the
Yeah, agree.
consumer.
Two famous examples in the last few years. One is Bud Light, where they hired this Ivy League marketing executive who said it was too trendy and too frat like and completely ignored their base consumer and lost them. And
Mm.
then also there was Jaguar with their cars. I don't even know what they did. I mean, that was so weird. And it was so anti base consumer for the Jaguar customer. I don't think I'd own one if you gave it to me. It was just weird. Just weird.
Right. No,
So,
you've got to relate. You've got to understand, right, your
yeah,
target audience, and you have
you
to
do.
understand what they care about, what, the value proposition the company brings to the
Yeah,
target
absolutely.
consumer. Now, you've described the Sara Lee Walmart era as a masterclass in strategic partnership. What did you learn about aligning incentives between manufacturer and retailer that most leaders still get wrong?
Yeah, I think most manufacturers view the supply chain and their retailers in a transactional way. Here's my product. You ought to buy it because here you go. And the buyer goes, well, okay, yes or no. We approached it from a strategic perspective with Walmart. Paul Fulton had the foresight. Matter of fact, he and Joe Neely and Bill Caldwell, three of the most brilliant businessmen, and Martha Daly, four of the most brilliant people I've ever met. And they could see the changing retail landscape. Walmart was coming on very strong. And back then you had Kmart and Zayres and all these others, but they could see the growth pattern of Walmart and said, we need to figure out how to do business with these people. And they formed a thing called the Walmart team, which Martha headed up and reporting to Bill, who headed up all the teams. And instead of each division approaching Walmart individually, we approach them as corporately. And so imagine if you're a multi-divisional company, that should be the company's problem, not the retailer's problem. So if you're a basics buyer at Walmart or any retailer, Target is another example, and you've got back to school event coming up and you're talking to your salesperson and you say, well, look, I want to do a big event and what can we do on underwear? Well, we can do this and this and this. Well, what about socks? I don't know. You'd have to talk to the sock guy, but it's the same brand. It's Hanes
Hmm.
brand or Fruit
Right.
of the Loom brand or Gildan. Why am I dealing with different people? So we centralized it, focused it. We aligned our systems, our supply chain, how we shipped. We found ways to cut costs. We shared in the margins, and our business grew 24-fold
Oh,
off of
wow.
100 million, which
Right.
is, that math works out great. And so we were able to grow and then expand that concept to others. And we had a bellwether event where I remember Walmart said, well, look, you guys keep talking to us about product and brand. Why don't you show us? So in typical manufacturer mode, we put together a fantastic PowerPoint. It was beautiful. Never to be beaten in the world of PowerPoints. This was the Mac Daddy. And we called down there and they told Bill, no, 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 don't show us in a PowerPoint. Show us. And they gave us what was store number one, which was now a warehouse. And they said,
Mm-hmm.
put together the fixtures, put together the margin, show us what we should be buying. Come tell us, take the viewpoint of category management, show us what it is we should be doing. So we did. And John Langford, another brilliant marketer, headed that effort up. And we went down. And frankly, I don't think we ever saw all of our products merchandised together. Walmart certainly hadn't. And that was the impetus for our business growing dramatically. And it just skyrocketed from there.
And I think you'd mentioned even down to the boxes, like you redesigned how the boxes.
We used to ship in Beers boxes where we take the plastic, 6-pack or 3-pack of underwear and we put it into a 12-pack box because we, as manufacturers, historically did things in dozens. And when you went to a Walmart warehouse, you just saw the Beers boxes on the floor, and so, well, why is that? And they said, well, we don't use those. We put things in totes. So it's like, why don't we just load into their totes at the factory?
Yeah.
So obviously cardboard savings, environmental savings, so it was just a huge early on in the green headway, just a phenomenal win for both companies.
Right. Time savings. So you said, a win-win for both companies cost wise and in multiple ways. Now you've worked in complex, troubled environments as well. What makes you say yes to a turnaround, and what do you look for that tells you this can be saved?
Well, I think there's something about a hurt puppy that I just happen to like. I don't know. I root for the underdogs a lot. Most of the time, it's self-inflicted. Most wounds of a company, I believe, especially an established company, companies don't do well for decades and then decline in 2 to 3 years because of the product. It might be because they didn't evolve properly. They didn't understand the consumer properly, the retail landscape. Frankly, most of them were then headed up by Ivy League, overeducated, academically educated, not business educated folks. In fact, I think Starbucks is another great example of that. It's very basic. You have to have a product that the consumer is looking for. You have to market to them. And if you market to the consumer and build demand, the retailer wants you. It doesn't have to be a push strategy all the time. It can be pushed for a while, but then it comes to pull through. Mm-hmm. And again, you'll always see a central theme for me about understanding the consumer.
When you arrived at Liberty Ammunition, you quickly saw both opportunity and risk in a highly cyclical category. What was your first 90-day plan mindset?
Well, the first 90 days was frankly to understand the business and the category. While I had experience in ammunition and firearms previously, that was all Liberty did was ammunition, and mine was much broader in scope. So I had to dig deep into that. I had to listen and see where, first you got to find out where the bathroom is. And then second of all, who's lying to me? Because self-preservation, when there's a new boss, self-preservation kicks into everybody. Everyone tells you how great they are and they start to undermine the other people. So you really have to just separate the wheat from the chaff and make some, frankly, tough decisions. And we had to do that. We were 31 people when I got there, and we're down to roughly 9 right now. And our production is up. Our capability is up. We have a new product roadmap. I learned something when I was at HBM Creamer as well. Bill Sprague was the CEO, and I remember he once said, new products are the sex appeal of a company. With it, you have many suitors. Without it, you have none. And I always thought that was just a fascinating saying, and I've carried that with me forever. Consumers always want the latest and the greatest, particularly with the advent of social media and instant communication. Yeah, you can go buy the old product. Mm-hmm. And there are some products that do not do well with, there's not a lot of early adopters. Ammunition is one of them. But if you don't have anything new, all you can do is talk about the old stuff. And we see it in our industry. The legacy companies come out with a new product, and frankly, it's a rehash of their old product, but they call it something new. And then people get excited about it because they don't understand the category or the product. And so it's just a constant battle. You just got to rotate through if you're those guys, because they can't come up with anything new because their equipment's built around the old. Right. Whereas we're very small and very nimble. So we can come up with, frankly, radically new product very quickly. Yeah. So we're fast. We're not followers. We're the innovation group.
Okay. So with ammunition, what does innovation look like?
Well, the struggle is most people think a hollow point is a great self-defense ammunition. It's still just lead with FMJ copper wrapped around it, but they leave a hole in the middle. Will it expand? Yeah, it'll widen and create a slightly larger temporary wound channel, but because of its weight, it doesn't carry a lot of stopping power. The kinetic energy is very low. It doesn't create a permanent wound channel. So it frankly is not very effective. The problem is most people don't understand that. Stopping power, kinetic energy, I didn't come up with this. I think it was Newton and some other guys during that time. It is half the mass or weight of that projectile times squared velocity. So your velocity counts as much or more than the weight. And most people think with FMJ bullets, they play with weight. The problem is you can't move the heavier bullets very fast because it overpressures inside your handgun or rifle and creates a dangerous situation. So how do you get more velocity? Lighter weight. So we make our bullets out of 100% copper. We hit harder, in some cases 50% harder than the old legacy bullets with a very light bullet. And so people think, well, how hard can that bullet hit? Harder than yours. And so then we also develop it so instead of just opening up this way, as it enters the body, it ruptures at the bottom and creates a permanent wound channel. And, the only time you should be using ammunition is when you want to have cessation of activity on the other end. Mm-hmm. And so, it's a little weird to go to bed thinking about that every night, but that's the task. We were a government development house starting back in 2005, and that's what we were tasked with. And the company's evolved and grown, and we've got a new product. I don't know if that can come into focus, but one of the criticisms of all copper product is that it doesn't penetrate us, depending on who you talk to. And the FBI protocols call for 12 to 18 inches, and we disagree. 18 inches. If you shoot someone in the front, 18 inches, it's going out the back.
Right.
You're going to hurt somebody else. We think that damage ought to be 12 to 14 or 15 inches. And it should be permanent and have cessation of activity.
Right.
Their argument is, well, if you shoot a fat guy through the shoulder, it's not going to make it to the heart. And our argument is, if you shoot him with ours, his arm's coming off and there's cessation of activity. And so, it's and I can tell you some special forces units agree with us. But, they developed their protocols based on the Miami shootout in the 1980s before all copper self-defense bullets were developed. And they're not changing. We don't look good in the protocol tests, but we don't think it's about penetration. We think it's about cessation of activity in a permanent wound channel.
So how much of your efforts, when it comes to marketing and sales and development and product development, come down to education and educating your
it's all about education. It's all about education. So it requires range days. We supply gel blocks to retailers and dealers. And we've been told that as people see this gel block and there's devastation from one bullet, and then underneath it, there's just a little line going through. People say, what's that? Well, that's Liberty Ammunition. Well, what's that other one? And we do it with Federal and Spear and others. And they go, well, whatever that is, that's what I want.
Right.
I go, here you go. So we have to do that. And then with law enforcement's not early adopters. And then, frankly, our competition, most are owned by Czechoslovakians now. And they're huge billion-dollar and public companies as well. They can price it whatever they want and squeeze out the small guy. So we've got to sell on performance. We have yet to lose a range day.
Wow.
We have yet to lose one. So that's really our task in 2026. We'll be doing a lot of range days. I'll be in Texas first week of January. And we've got some large departments that want to switch, but they have to work through their old inventory. And then, frankly, with federal government budgets jumping up and down, going to states, a lot of states are saying, I got to wait and see. We want to bring you in, but we're not sure where our budgets are going. So, and then our competition comes in with lower price to try and get the business on budget.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned before that you've made a lot of major operational changes, automation, consolidation, and scaling output with fewer people. How did you decide what to automate versus what must stay hands-on for quality?
Yeah, very good question. It is, first of all, the low hanging fruit is pretty obvious when you step into these companies, particularly one like Liberty that was built around product development. They weren't really worried about cost, they were worried about getting it right. So, as an example, our bullets would come off the Swiss machine and they'd fall into a bucket, but it was a rod that had a hole drilled in it. Someone would pick up every individual projectile, put it in a hand jig, and then close it to create that closed front end. It was done by hand. So I walked in and said, what are all these things on the floor? Oh, those are our buckets to go to closing. And I walked in and there was like 5 or 6 guys just sitting there one by one.
Wow.
And I asked, can't this be done on the machine? And there was a lot of pride in the hand closing. And I understand that. And everybody knew each other, but it wasn't commercially feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the folks from Citizen come in and they said, nope, it's impossible. You can't do it. Well, a small Swiss machine down the shop, down the next town over, found a way to do it. So we asked him to come work on our machines, but it worked somewhat. And one of our machines was rather old. And we talked to the folks at Tsugami. The guy said, well, yeah, this is easy. We've seen people do this in other shops. And he brought it in and we bought a Tsugami, brought in this custom tooling, and it works like clockwork. And it's funny. We've had some people that worked there before that left on their own to go do other things. And they came back and visited and we caught up and they saw the new Tsugami and the bullets being closed. And I remember one of the guys, Bailey, looked at me and goes, oh, gee, Gary, I thought this couldn't be done. I said, yeah, I know. So it can be done. You just have to think about things creatively. We all get in a rut. When someone starts at our company, I'll tell them, look, I want you to look around and if something doesn't make sense, tell me. I am now so used to this, like the frog in the water. It's gotten warm, but I'm used to it now. So fresh pair of eyes is always welcome. And so when people take tours or come visit, I appreciate it. I go, well, why do you do this? And, you've got to stop and go, that is a great question. Why do we do that? And it's just another thing on the list of, let's find a better way. So
right.
We're in a constant state of trying to find improvement, and we've found many. And so it's our blemish product is down. Our scrap product is down. Our accounting processes have been improved. Our manufacturing has been improved. And margins are up. And so we've been able to hold price. Mm-hmm. Even in the face of tariffs. Yeah, we could have gone up, but all of our competition has to go up. And so they're getting darn close to us. So we're going to overcome that price differential just by the mere fact of our efficiencies.
Yeah. Now, as far as quality, when it comes to the automation, what have you seen there?
Well, we've seen our quality go up. We've got much more consistency, which is driving down our scrap. There is one part of our culture, which it's high cost, yes, but we don't want to let go of it. And that is the fact that when product is made, we still pick up every bullet and inspect it individually. And the reason we do that is our product is made for self-defense. It has to be right. We could do it. There's mechanical devices and others that can do it faster. But quite frankly, somebody's life depends on this bullet.
Right.
Not every company goes through the pains that we go through. But I had a CEO of one of our competition. By the way, we all know each other. For the most part, we all get along. He told me that, if their ammo works in 90% of the guns, they're satisfied with that.
90%.
90%. That doesn't work for us.
Right. That's a big
when
big
someone,
gap.
when someone even just has a problem with one bullet, we stop and research it. We want our product to always work, never fail. And so we inspect it. We weigh every bullet to make sure that the grains are correct. We want to make sure the primer is flat. We want to make sure there's no imperfections. We even want our bullets to look good. If there's a scratch, some of our product is nickel plated. There's a scratch on the nickel plating, it goes into blemish. So we've incorporated incoming product QC procedures, during production QC procedures, and then final production QC procedures as well. So we're fanatical about product quality, and I don't want that to change. Could I automate it? I could, I suppose, but I don't think it would be to the depth and the level that you can get when you've got a product that's 360-degree QC requirement.
Right.
So
Yep.
uh, I don't plan on changing that. We'll cover that cost. It's down to 2 to 3 people, and we can QC quite a bit with them, and they're delightful people. They care, love them to death, and that's my blind spot. I won't change it.
Now, you've said consumers debate firearms constantly, but rarely talk about ammunition. From a brand strategy standpoint, how do you educate a market that thinks it already knows?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. And we struggle with it. We try to find people with street credibility that can talk about it, that are watched. Frankly, they're so expensive, it's tough for us. So we have to target some of the middle level folks in terms of consumer communication. But the strange thing about firearms and ammunition, because we're so highly regulated, for the most part, you've got to go to a dealer and buy it. Yes, you can buy it online, but that's frankly not our customer base. They've got to go to a dealer. So we're very focused on training the dealers, providing them with the materials like the gel block that's been shot. So they can just point to it and say, when you buy a firearm, typically people buy it for self-defense, but they also need to practice. So this gives the dealer the opportunity to say, look, you need to get range ammo and you need to get some self-defense ammo. And customer doesn't know, and typically a lot of the dealers don't know, but they can point to that gel block that's on the counter and say, here's the difference. Or this is self-defense ammo. This is what you ought to be carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can tell you several special forces units, their unit doesn't carry our ammo a lot, but the operators do for personal use. And we take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
We take a lot of pride in that.
So is it different ammunition for practice, for range, and for self-defense? Okay.
Yeah, because of our cost and because of the behavior of our bullet, you don't want to spend $1 per bullet and go to the range and shoot 500 rounds. But with the really cheap FMJ product, you can buy that online at 20 cents per round. So when you go to the range, you just want to have fun and blow holes in paper.
Yeah.
Shoot that other stuff. We can't compete with that. But when you're defending your life, defending your family, protecting your home, you don't want a product that's going to potentially go through somebody and hurt one of your kids down the hallway or your parents.
Right.
Or frankly, everyone's this is a little bit of a direct shot at our customer base, but we all do great when we're at the range because we're shooting at paper 10 feet away.
And you're in a calm state and you're focused, a calm state. And you have, the environment
when you're being
under
confronted
control.
with someone who might be shooting at you, I think some of the law enforcement studies show 35, 40% or more of the shots miss the target.
Yeah.
So if you're in an apartment, those FMJ bullets are going to go right through that wall. You could hurt somebody next door. So you have to be very, very careful about your ammo selection for self-defense, what you have in your firearm at home. The FMJs and the hollow points, which are really, in fact, many cases, they plug the hole in the hollow point so they don't have to call it a hollow point. They can sell it in other states. It's still an FMJ bullet. You're responsible where every bullet goes, and it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous.
So what's the hardest part of selling a performance-driven product when many buyers default to price? And what has worked the best to shift the conversation?
Yeah, if they want to talk about price, we just say, look, we're not your guy. Why don't you go online and buy something in bulk, get it for 20 cents? God bless you. But when we want to talk about performance, we can shift it away from price. And the problem, a lot of times people say, well, I haven't had a problem with that before. And I've also heard, well, it's bad optics with your bullet. If it creates that kind of a wound channel, that's bad optics to the public. And I've, my response, which upsets some of them, is, well, what's a worse optic for you? Going to a fellow officer's home to inform that spouse that their husband or wife have passed away? You tell me, which would you rather deal with? And they get a little PO'd about that. But the fact of the matter is they don't understand ballistics. And they don't understand it until we do a range day. And the first 30 minutes of any range day with a police department is usually scorn and ridicule and, because we'll have them shoot a watermelon. And they'll go, oh, well, if we get attacked by watermelons, Gary, we know what ammo to use.
Right.
But they notice their ammo goes through the watermelon without much of an entry wound or an exit wound.
So the
And when they shoot,
watermelon stays intact.
and when
it
they
just,
shoot ours,
yeah.
the whole front end of that watermelon blows open. The
Wow.
watermelon falls forward towards them, and we pull the projectile out of the watermelon in most cases. And they're blown away. They go, how's it do that? How does your bullet hit harder, but then hit the brakes and stop?
Right.
So now we've got their attention and we explain it to them. And for law enforcement and military, we okay. And by the way, they do all the shooting. We have them shoot a gel block and we penetrate just as far in the gel block as the other guys. The other guys might be this much further, but it's a very temporary wound channel. And ours makes the gel block jump. There's a permanent wound channel. And they go, well, okay, yeah, but look, ours penetrates further. And I go, yeah, it does. We'll grant you, theirs will go an extra 2 inches maybe versus ours. Now let's put some level 3A body armor in front. Shoot theirs or shoot ours. Which one do you want to shoot first? I don't want them to think we're doing anything funny, but they'll shoot ours and they'll shoot theirs. And with theirs, you can just pull that bullet right out of the front of the body armor. With ours, it goes right through and it's 6 inches inside the bare gel.
Wow. Because
the bad guys are buying level 3A body armor online now.
Online.
The bad guys can buy this product.
Yeah.
So the police have got a completely different challenge in front of them now. And frankly, and the military pointed this out, we go for hostage rescue or we're clearing a room. We don't want a bullet going through a guy and hitting a friendly behind or one of our own officers. So, there's that challenge.
Yeah.
And then the final question we get is, yes, but it's a big issue when somebody takes a firearm off of one of our officers. Now they have ammunition that could go through level 3 body armor. And that's always a tough one. But a lieutenant commander from a very large department answered it for me. He said, who's to say they're going to get that gun and then shoot our officer in the body armor? They're not going to do that. They're going to shoot him in the head, or they're not going to just put it under the body armor and shoot. They're going to shoot them where there isn't any. So that's not an issue. And I know that's a grim thing to talk about, but that's why we are so adamant about our product quality. That's why we're so adamant about making something consistently better than the competition. Times have changed, and it's a vicious world out there, and the police have to deal with it every single day. I can't even imagine challenges of being a police officer.
Yeah, so with your ammunition, like one bullet will do the job. They're firing fewer rounds, and there's not the collateral damage that the other.
We truly view our job as getting the officer home at night safely. And our consumer product was also far, far superior to anyone else's. Far superior. And but everybody thinks they're Rambo. Everybody thinks that it's not going to happen to them. Everybody listens to President Biden. Well, I'm just going to get a shotgun and shoot it in the air. Well, that's against the law. Sorry. Or I'll shoot him in the leg. You're going to piss off a guy with a gun?
Right. Shoot him in the leg.
You shoot him in the leg?
Right.
Yeah. And we've had officers tell us, well, my civilian review board tells me to shoot the gun out of the guy's hand, shoot him in the arm. I go, yeah. And they just roll their eyes and go, that's what I have to deal with. So we've handcuffed the police over the years. Hopefully we're part of the solution for getting that officer home safely at night.
Yeah. Now, Liberty is patent rich and built as a development house. How do you balance innovation with the reality of legacy competitors and buyer inertia?
Yeah, great question. Most of our patents revolve around armor-piercing rounds for the military, and that was the basis for our lawsuit with big government. For the most part, that's been forgotten by big government, but then you've got to deal with lobbying, Congress, and everything else. So we've approached different departments. I can tell you we're under test right now with a highly reputable group in the government and several military special forces. But it's hard to get the word out there. I mean, it's just hard. They're used to buying what they buy. So we've got to go through testing protocols. And unfortunately, the ones that aren't very forward thinking or that are lazy will say, well, have you been tested by the FBI? Yes. Well, do you pass the protocols? Yes. Okay, well, we'll contact them. Well, there's old relationships with the FBI ballistics lab and other brands as well. They've been dealing with them for 20, 40 years or more. Who's this new guy that just walked in and said, hey, why don't you test our ammo? We have to prove ourselves. So we've got some small law enforcement departments. And when we do, we get the word out. And I find out more and more SWAT groups are using us for another reason that we never thought of, but it's inherent in our product. And that is that we're lighter weight.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you have a duty belt on, that's a lot of weight. With 2 magazines in the belt and one in the gun, we can save almost a full pound of weight
Wow.
for the officer, which one South Florida police department told us this will make the career length of career longer for several of our officers because they develop hip problems. So career longevity
Mm-hmm.
is a benefit as well with our ammo.
Yeah.
So we can provide harder hitting, lighter weight, lighter recoil, higher stopping power ammunition, but we got to get the word out, and we're small, so
Yeah.
we got to pay our dues. We'll just keep pushing. We'll win because we will never quit.
So in regulated and restricted marketing environments, like for ammunition, the traditional channels aren't always available. So what are your most effective trust pathways for growth, or for dealers, distributors, education, point of sale, range demos?
The distributor, there's a very small funnel in our industry, and it really comes down to the distributor network to distribute out to the dealers. So we've got roughly 40 people in the field. We've got commission salespeople that represent us and other brands. And so they're in the dealers constantly educating and providing them with the sell-in materials. And the gel blocks have been just phenomenal for us. And one other thing, too, we started with brands of civil defense, and then we developed Overwatch for special forces. And what we've kind of fell into by accident, credit to some of our competitors, we saw some rounds called Backcountry by Hornady. Hornady makes a great product, by the way. They're the great people, and they make a great product, and they're still family owned. They're not owned by foreign country organizations like others. So we like those guys, but they came out with something called Backcountry. And when I was doing store checks, I asked them, well, why is that? What's backcountry? And they said, well, people go deer hunting, and they're in the backwoods, they're shedding, they're hiking. Bears are a problem in Montana and other areas. Backcountry is for that kind of protection. So I thought, wow, I wonder if we could do something like that. And we've got a guy I call the Bullet Whisperer, and he took one of our current designs, altered it, and created a 9mm and a 10mm that hit harder than anybody else's, and they penetrate because our product is copper. It's not lead. Lead's soft. It hits bone. It will just spread and stop. Ours is 100% copper. It'll break through. So we came up with something called Bear Country, and it was we launched it late in the season. It was an instant hit, and I think it's because people know exactly what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, I'm going out hiking. What do you recommend? Bear Country. Here you go. Rather than what we got, the civil defense 10mm. We can cut out the conversation and go right to the specific usage. And then also this one, I'm not sure if you can see it, Spike. It's got a spike machined out of the middle of it. And then in the box, it's a cellophane front. Mm-hmm. So people can see it and they'll say, oh, okay, I get it. It's got a, what in the world is that? They've never seen anything like it. So this one is doing extremely well. We just launched it, and it'll be a big event for us at SHOT Show.
So it's really like the naming and packaging are helping you position the products and help the customers get it instantly, like what the product is actually for and what it does.
Kind of like lean cuisine.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Kind of like lean cuisine.
Yeah. So how do you think product storytelling in a category that's often technical and emotional at the same time appeals to customers?
It's a challenge for us. I mean, I can tell you that today alone, I was in communication with 2 coroners' offices. It's grim, and we get calls from coroners all the time, and because they're trying to figure out what in the world happened. I've got this.
Really?
Yeah, I've got this body. I'm trying to figure out what were they shot with. So we get calls quite a bit about, can you help us describe the wound channel? And this is very grim, and I apologize for that, but you might remember Oreo had a commercial or a tagline that said milk's favorite cookie. Mm-hmm. We like to think we're a coroner's favorite bullet.
Favorite.
They've just never seen anything like this, and so they're trying to figure it out. So there's been a major Illinois city, which you can figure out which one that is, has drafted a manuscript about it, and then another one in the Northeast. Scheduled to have another conversation with them this afternoon.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So really just, I guess, educating all the way around to the coroners as well, just educating them on what the damage looks like from this type of bullet.
Right. When they do the autopsy, they've got to figure everything out, and they haven't seen anything like this before. And we've only been around in the consumer market in a big way, really since the start of COVID. And that's when the category took off.
Uh-huh.
We had ammunition and capacity, and retailers were buying whatever they could get their hands on. And that included Liberty. So we, in a sense, we launched the consumer market based out of capacity need.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken a foothold.
So looking ahead for the next 3 to 5 years, what does winning look like for Liberty Ammunition, broader consumer adoption, deeper channel penetration, positioning? What does it look like?
Yeah, we've got a few more new products that we want to come out with over the next 3-year period. So that'll be exciting. But right now, we've got a few that we've got to get situated. We've got 2 chains that are coming on board, hopefully by the time this airs, and then hopefully a major law enforcement department. Because once you get those, you start to see the trickle-down effect. Other law enforcement groups say, what? You're carrying what? And they'll want to take a look at it. So we're partnering with the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. We'd like to win with 1 or 2 DHS departments if we can. And a lot of this becomes mission specific. So it won't be broad based, but you just get a couple of those wins. We'll chip away at it. So I think that's what winning looks like to us, assisting federal law enforcement officers and then also some local and state groups. We're already gaining ground there. So that's good. And then once you do that, the consumer picks up on it, because they want to carry what the authentic law enforcement groups carry. Mm-hmm. So if we can win there, I think we'll do extremely well.
So word of mouth, and it will travel, and
it will.
So you've shared that the idea that everything is another step in the journey. How do you keep teams resilient and focused when the stakes are high and setbacks are inevitable?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you just have to keep motivating them. Salespeople are motivated by money, spiffs and awards. That way, keep them going out and presenting it. And frankly, it starts with me. I have to stay positive. I have to stay energetic. And when we go to shows, I received a great compliment from, I think it was the Dealer Wire. They were at one of the buy group shows, and they took a picture of me, and they said, perhaps the hardest working person on the floor. I don't sit down. I don't allow phones at the booth. We're ready to talk about ammunition and show them why it's better, ask them what they carry, why do they carry it? Well, what if we had something that did this? Would you be interested? And when they say yes, we say, well, great. Here's what you need to think about. Mm-hmm. And the other blessing of ammunition, too, is it's not terribly expensive. We can certainly send them a free box. Say, try it. You tell me what you think. And everyone is shocked at the weight. We've had people give us back a box, say, look, thanks, but, if you can get me some free ammo, I'd like it. I said, well, it's in there. Like,
really?
Yeah, that's a full box. And they're shocked. They're absolutely shocked, especially when they find out that it hits harder and has more stopping power, better bullet behavior, lighter recoil, and all the good things that you want can be in a lighter product, because they've been taught for generations, the heavier the bullet, the better. And that is absolutely not true. Absolutely wrong direction.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've given strong advice about networking, reputation, and avoiding constant job hopping. What do you believe creates real career acceleration, especially for marketers and operators in PE environments?
Yeah. I think it's absolutely critical. Oh, gosh, how do I say this? Go to the office. Do not underestimate networking, mentoring, and demonstrating that you're doing a good. You can do a great job. But if you're not doing it, it's not being demonstrated clearly to others, it's lost. And frankly, be a good team player. I've seen some great, brilliant people that were bad team players. I'll take a B player that gives 110% over an A player that gives 75% any day of the week. Any day of the week. The road to failure of brands and companies is littered with brilliant consultants that weren't good team players and nor didn't understand the consumer. I mean, we read about it all the time. Hello, Cracker Barrel. Mm-hmm. How about having 100% maple syrup? As your maple syrup rather than 50% maple, 50% corn syrup. And was changing that logo really going to bring in a new consumer? No.
No, yeah, they, I
They just,
guess, learned the hard way.
yeah, they did. They did.
Expensive
It's really a
lesson.
shame. It's really, yeah.
Hmm.
Harley Davidson has been going through it. Of course, Bud Light, Jaguar, Cracker Barrel. It's comical, and it's unfortunate because it didn't have to happen.
Right.
Didn't have to happen.
Yeah. So what do you think? How did they go wrong? Did they just not test the market enough before trying to
Well,
transition?
I think they tested the market to get the results they wanted. I think you need to understand your core consumer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to get a new consumer than it is to get more consumption out of your current one.
Right.
And I don't understand the strategy of upsetting your core customer in the hopes of getting a new one.
Right.
It just seems like a bad strategy to me. And so, we kowtow to our current customer base and then feed off of that and add new ones.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand losing a current
Right.
customer.
Well, and a referral or word of mouth brings a lot better customers, higher quality customers, more loyal customers than brand new customers who never heard of you before.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I would bet that, would love your perspective on this, but I would bet Cracker Barrel has really good brand awareness. I would bet Jaguar's got great
Of
brand awareness.
course.
I'm
Right.
sure Bud Light had great brand awareness.
True.
Why would you demean the equity and your customer base? The other folks already know about you. They've already decided not to buy you. It's funny, and I hate to pick on Ivy League schools as they decline in value, but the VP of marketing at Bud Light, what a catastrophe. What a catastrophe. Comically bad. And then to defend it was just ridiculous as well. And you see retailers doing it, Target struggling. It's just a shame. They've just forgotten their customer base.
Right. Yeah, I guess there's so much competition out there that I guess they struggle to innovate and to reach people, so they're, grasping it.
Yeah.
Anything
And
that,
there's some great stories of brands that have completely changed, and most people don't even realize it. Abercrombie and Fitch. I mean, did you know that was a gun store, safari store in New
really?
York? Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Back in I think they closed in the 70s. They closed that down and then came back out, rebranded as Just Apparel.
Just apparel.
But there was
Interesting.
enough
Yeah.
time between,
Mm-hmm.
the previous customer base didn't care. I mean, there was other options to go, but the new customer base, they'd heard of Abercrombie and Fitch. I think they did a brilliant job. Most people didn't know that was a gun store. You could go by
I did not know
you're
that.
going on a safari, go to Abercrombie and Fitch and get your clothing and your firearms and your ammo.
Right. But I agree with you that it comes down to really understanding that target audience, to really understanding the core cares, what they're struggling with, what they care about, and then speaking to them as if you're the expert on solving their problems. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you talk to them, you'll learn a lot about how they feel about your company, where the issues are. And at Hanes, that was measured ongoing every month. There was a review, quantitative research on behavior and thoughts. And we found out a great thing. One of the products that consumers loved was the Hanes Her Way cotton bra. Loved it. We didn't make one, but consumers kept telling us how much they loved it. Maybe we should come out with one.
Really? Wait,
Yeah.
so you didn't have one? You didn't make one?
No.
And
No.
so what were they thinking?
Well, Hanes is known for cotton.
Uh-huh.
And so they just said, we love your Hanes Her Way cotton bras. Better
But you
get
didn't.
one. We better come up with one pretty darn quick. We did.
Wow.
And it skyrocketed. I mean, it
Yeah.
just took off. It just
Yeah.
took off. So, there's just funny things like that. So we do the same thing, but we don't have the ability to do ongoing consumer research in this market. And there's so many segments.
Right.
So we do it by talking to the dealers and online calls with customers whenever we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Gary, final question. If you could leave listeners with one leadership principle that has consistently paid off, what would it be?
Deal with people with the highest integrity possible. I can tell you that, particularly if you're in an industry that you love or one that's somewhat incestuous, there's a lot of people that have tried to enter this category and they've done it successfully, but they had very low integrity, or they viewed it as a backward industry, where I'll change this industry. I'll show them. I've come from a big consumer products company. I'll show them how to do stuff. I think everyone's pretty happy with the way it is. And if you're not a good team player, you're going to be walked out the door and no one's going to want you back. I mean, I can tell you there was also a buyer at a major retailer. Absolute hard person to deal with. I won't say the word I was going to say. It would give away their gender. But they thought they were best buddies with some of these suppliers, but they were very, very hard to deal with. Had a lot of people fired at different companies along the way saying, I don't like this person. Well, when they got let go from that retailer, there was no one there to say, look, what can I do to help you?
Right.
People want to work with people they want to work with. And so be the ultimate team player. And that means, when the decisions are made, lock arms. Even if you don't agree with that entirely, lock arms with the team and march down the path.
Yeah. I think that's very, very good advice because it will come back to bite you if you're, yeah.
And clean up your social profile. Don't put things out there that you wouldn't want your mother to see.
Right.
Just very basic.
Right.
Very basic.
Yeah. So it's being a team player and a good steward in the world as well. Yeah. Just how you represent yourself. Because again, it all comes back. And if you put something out there, it's out there and you never know. Yeah. Who's going to see it, like you said. So.
And it won't come back. So I would love to put out we all want to express our point of view. I'd love to do that in some cases, but I always stop and think, I don't want anyone to read this. Do I want to tell this person off? Sure I do, but it's not my job to correct the world. Some people are just going to do what they do, and God bless their hearts, as we say in the South.
Yeah, bless their hearts. And ultimately, it's like doing that, telling someone off or putting out bad press, it ultimately just looks bad on the person doing so, and it doesn't teach the person that you're aiming it at any lessons. They're generally going to be resistant anyway. So I don't know what good it does, really.
Yeah, it's just a good reminder the world's made up of different people, and that we don't all agree on everything, and that's what makes the world go round.
Yeah, and totally okay. Yeah, I think we're better off just listening. And even if we don't agree, try to understand and just seeing it from, especially if it's a customer, consumer, from their perspective, even if we're in love with our product or our service, if we're getting feedback that maybe we don't like or agree with, listen anyway, because we might learn something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have the very good advice.
Yeah.
You're right.
So Gary, thank you for your conversation, your perspective on brand, retail partnership strategy, turnaround leadership, and building trust in a misunderstood category. Very valuable. For listeners who want to learn more about Liberty Ammunition, where should they go? And what's the best way to contact you?
Well, come on over to www.libertyammo.com. We also have an Instagram channel. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. That would be great. Liberty Ammo also has its own LinkedIn. It's tough on Facebook and YouTube because they're punitive to our category. And we've been locked out and blocked out. So don't look for us there. Just come right over. We'd love to talk to you on LinkedIn or email me direct at GaryRamey@libertyammo.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and tune in to the next one. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and keep igniting industry.